Ah,
Okay, you're live.
Is he coming on?
Just logged in. Oh, no, he didn't. He's an attendee and we're all panelists.
Ah, here he comes.
getting there.
Sally ever wants to change jobs. I'm sure Zoom is hiring and they customer service specialist.
There he, oh, almost.
You're teasing us,
There
Yoram.
we go.
Yay,
Sorry about that,
yeah.
everybody. So I guess as a first step, let's just jump right in and call the meeting to order. So I call this meeting of the Village of Mamaroneck Board of Ethics open today on June 7th at approximately 3:09 p.m. We basically just have one open matter for general session before we go into executive session. And that is Sherry sent the minutes around earlier from our previous meeting, and I just had a very small edit to them, which is, I think, where we talk about the different people being appointed to the new posts. I think we just need to tweak the wording a little bit. That with something to the effect of Ms. Allison nominated Mr. Miller to remain as chair. And then the following, there were no other nominations. At that point, a vote was taken, and then just continue with everything you have about, instead of voted unanimously to nominate, voted unanimously to select.
Same thing with secretary.
Exactly. And those were the only edits I had to the minutes. I don't know if anybody else had any edits.
Looks good.
No one else had any edits. I move to approve the minutes from the May 27th, 2022 meeting. Subject to
Second.
those edits.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
yes.
So the minutes from the May 27th meeting are approved. Does anybody else have anything they want to discuss in the general session before we go into executive session at this time? If not, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we go into executive session.
Second,
All in favor of going to executive session?
Aye.
All right, we are now going to go into executive session. I will meet everybody hopefully in a lot less time than last time. So we'll see everybody there.
okay,
Thanks.
bye.
So I have to click on that thing, that link, right? You're not,
Actually, Sally, one quick question for you. Oh, Sally, I
Yes,
think-
Yoram. Yes, Yoram, sorry.
Has the executive order that allows us to meet remotely expired? I know I read somewhere. that-
June 14,
Okay, so our next meeting would have to be in person then, or?
unless she extends it. The only other way, what you could do, Yoram, is you could do this, but you would all have to publish your locations
Oh,
and allow people to come to them if they wanted to.
okay, so
Those are the old rules.
I guess, guys, before we go into executive session, does anybody have a preference for our next meeting if we do it by Zoom?
I think they're all gone. It's just you and
I'll
I.
let you know when we get back out of it.
Okay, sounds good. If you have any problems, call me because I have
Will do.
executive session on a different machine.
All right,
Thanks.
thanks, Sally.
Sure thing.
Here we are.
Am I where I should be? Yes.
Oh, Susan. That's right.
Yay.
Hey, I
all
just saw
made it.
Susan.
I'm here. What?
We're here.
I saw you. That's how I knew you guys were back. Is Yorm coming back?
We
You know?
hope.
I'm gonna try.
If he doesn't
That's his
show up,
intent.
if he doesn't show up soon, we'll close without him, but he had a couple of things to do. He's stuck in the attendees side. Can you promote him? Sally? Sally can't hear us. Oh, here he is.
Here we go.
No, yeah.
All right, thanks, everybody. So we're back from the executive session where we discussed an advisory opinion request, some personnel matters, and reviewed the annual disclosure forms that have been submitted so far to Sally. Sally, we, as is typical in years, we found some issues that probably need to be cleaned up on the forms. I'll just coordinate with you on those and I'll just send you the list. It's not as long as some years, but there's still a few things there, so we can talk about those. And
Very good.
okay, I'll just try to reach out to you tomorrow with that. The one issue we actually have left is we need to schedule our next meeting. I don't think there's much that we have to do between the current meeting and now, just a couple of matters that we're just going to follow up on that came out of executive session. The big news is, what's the date that we have to, that the procedures change and we can't just Zoom by default?
June 14, unless the governor extends it again.
And she normally, typically we wouldn't be allowed to have these Zoom meetings because of COVID. The governor entered an executive order that basically suspended the open meetings laws, assuming as long as we were streaming. That ends June 14th unless they extend. They've extended it a bunch of times to get here, but she's usually extended much, well before a week before the expiration. So
Not always, Yorm. I found that the last few times she extended it the day before. So there is a shot.
So there's a shot. But the good news is if we don't extend, all it really means, if she doesn't extend, all it really means is that we'll have to identify where we're all located when we do the stream.
And allow
Oh, we
people
don't have to go
come
in?
to your, no, but you would have to allow someone to come into your home or wherever you're streaming from if they came there.
You mean if it's the public part?
Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly. So,
But you
know,
can come in and meet, you
Could you
can come
imagine
meet,
that?
you can come and meet at the regatta.
so if people, that's just what's people's preference. Do we want to risk Stuart Teaker walking into your living room or?
Yeah, could you
somebody
imagine
else
somebody
like-
walking in your living room? Hi, I'm here for the meeting.
And,
Well,
and
It's
also it
happened.
would be like a minute because then we'd go into an executive session and they would have to leave, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then they could come back, I guess.
I'll take the risk. I like doing these things on Zoom.
Now, you don't all have to agree. Some can be here and some can do by Zoom.
But anybody who's doing by Zoom has to allow this person to walk in?
Anyone,
I don't,
any
I
person.
don't agree to that. I'm not going to agree to that.
So
I don't
Sally,
want people coming in.
Susan, you, if we look at something like the end of next week for this, when could we? Are there times that people could do it? What's best for me is as early as possible in the morning. Is there an end of next week day that works for everybody for that, or?
Check my calendar.
Thursday.
Well, I'm great at 7 a.m. if you like early.
Let's
Yeah,
not get crazy, Alan.
I would say that, except I'm going to a concert in Carnegie Hall the night before on Thursday, but,
No one's here to let you in or do your Zoom, so that's not gonna work.
so what's the earliest that we can,
9 o'clock.
Yeah, the 17th might be bad for me early in the morning, so I'm going to see Paul McCartney on the 16th.
Woohoo. Well, that's what I was saying. So I'm going to the opera kind of thing. So look, I could do 9 o'clock on Thursday. I would prefer to do lunchtime-ish, like 1-ish on Friday. I could do 12 on Thursday.
You know, I could probably do the Friday at lunchtime if that's better for people.
Well, lunchtime, I said lunchtime, but I wouldn't be able to start until 1.
Okay,
Are
yeah.
you talking, you're talking about June?
The 17th?
June
Is that what you're talking
17th?
about, the 17th, right?
Yeah, so the 17th, that Friday.
I'm good with that.
What time? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Noon?
But Susan, was it 1 p.m.?
Yeah,
Sally,
So
how
we-
far in advance
So
do we
about a
have to
buck?
publish the location?
72 hours. So we can make it a hybrid at this point. That it'll be here at the regatta. And I'll reserve it for the 17th at 1 o'clock. And then whoever wants to do Zoom, let me know, and we can set up Zoom in that room.
wait, let me ask you something. So if I don't want anybody coming to my house. What if I went to one of those people's houses
You could do that.
and shared
Welcome
the
to come here,
screen?
Sally, or Susan, I'm sorry. You're welcome to come here. We're
Oh, wait a
close-
minute.
close
If
to
we
the
go
door.
on Zoom and someone from the public wants to attend in person, why can't they attend at the regatta?
They can also unfortunately attend wherever the board.
I mean,
goes.
it
If
is
we
being
go
hosted.
back to the old rules were that you had to post your location and you had to allow people to attend there.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go to Alan's
Susan,
house.
just come to my
It's
house.
easier than going to the regatta and la. If that, I mean, it's easier for me. Is that okay with you? It doesn't matter. We're pretty
anybody-
close.
Is anybody
We're
planning
really
on being at
nice
the
couple
regatta?
there.
I'll go to the regatta unless Alan really wants to have a party.
You can you don't have to be at the regatta, but now Alan, let me, your home has to be accessible, wheelchair accessible and all that good stuff.
Ooh. Those stairs?
Definitely not. We can move them, we can meet in the backyard if the weather's nice. No, all right, if it's gonna be this much trouble, let's just go to the regatta. I mean, it's so close. It's fine.
Okay,
All right.
we're gonna go to the regatta, but I can't get there at 1. I'm working until 12:45. I might be able to get there at 1, but I have to close up my things and all that. I'll try.
Do we want to do 1:15? Would that be easier, Susan, or 1:30?
Not 1:30 is too late. 1:15.
I
I
have a
might be,
question. I'm sorry, so I
might
didn't
be
mean to
able
cut
to
you
make
off.
it at 1. But do it at 1. Do it at
Okay.
1.
They could start, Susan, and then you could
Yeah.
just come in.
Yeah, do it at 1.
Sure, does that work for you?
It's gonna take us
Um,
15 minutes to get the Zoom thing working, Susan. So
Yeah, that's why I was thinking.
don't worry about it.
I'm gonna try to make it work.
There's nothing magical. We can definitely do a different date. There's nothing important about the 17th, so.
You know what? I am juggling 3 or 4 different people's schedules. So, and then I have arts council stuff too. So, let's just leave it and I'll figure it out.
Thanks.
And Alan, I guess if you're not, anyone, not just Alan, if you're not going to be at the regatta, just let Sally know on Monday where you're going to be so she can give the requisite notice.
Maria, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. On the website, let me pull this up. Back into my tab here. Under, if you go to the Board of Ethics and you go under rules, it's still saying that the regular meeting of the Board of Ethics will be held either at the courtroom, blah, blah, or at the regatta on the second Tuesday of each month, except for the month of August. Now, wouldn't it be easier if we, I don't know if we'd have to stick with that date, but wouldn't it be easier if we always had a set day every month where we met regardless of whether or not we had any business to discuss? And wouldn't it be better to have it be in the evening when most of the world isn't at work? In case people do want to attend it under the open meetings law?
Well, I
That was
thought,
when the board did, I'm sorry, Shar, but that
Right.
is when the board would meet and then it just kind of fell apart.
Right, I
Right.
know that's when I was on it previously, that's what we did. It was in the evening, it was on,
Mhm.
I believe it was on a Tuesday night.
I think that when we went to Zoom, right, Yoram, we
Had
were.
to do it during
told
business
it Had
hour.
to be during business hours, so Sally could record it and everything.
Right.
Because they
even-
didn't want me working overtime.
And even pre-Zoom, there were issues about access to locations. And so we had to make sure we could actually, we weren't able to get into the regatta and the courthouse. We just had to make sure we had access. So
Right. No, I was just saying,
Even
even for
before then.
even for somebody who's considering joining the committee or whatever, like you'd be looking into it, you'd be like, oh, well, this committee meets on this night, I really can't do that, or I can do that. You know, it's kind of
My-
It's kind
my
of difficult to
that
have
that
somebody
would
come
be-
in and
Maria,
then,
is the flexibility's made this easier for us, at least for me.
right,
You know, my evenings tend to get busier than my days, but because we tend to have this conversation when we need to meet, oh, let's meet in a month or 2 or 3. We all find a day that works and a time that works, and that's
Right.
been helpful for me.
yeah, and what we discovered was pretty much the meetings that we have cluster together. Yeah, unless we get a few advisory opinion requests, we can go months without having any business at all. And so setting aside the first few months of this year, which were really an anomaly, and again, on me, typically we were pretty good about scheduling the meeting that we just had, that would go through the annual disclosure forms.
Mhm.
And then everything else was just done as needed. And so we'd easily go 4 or 5 months without meeting, then we'd have 5 meetings in a month, just depending on what was coming in and what was happening.
okay.
I mean, I don't mind meeting at night if we're gonna meet in person. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm just like a kind of like scheduling fluke, like I know, you know, Monday night I got to work around Dancing with the Stars. Tuesday night used to be This Is Us, so like I know what my plans are. So I know, you know, hey, I got This Is Us on
Right.
Tuesday night, so I
There's
don't
a
schedule
DVR.
anything between 9 and 10, you know.
There's a new
Right. Or
thing called a
DVR.
DVR.
I'm just saying, you tend to know like what, then like if you know you have this commitment once a
love it.
month,
I
you tend to
love
keep it free, is what I'm saying.
It's interesting though, Maria, you rose the issue of if people wanted to attend or people wanted to watch.
Right.
I don't know that there were very many issues that the Board of Ethics deal with that really the public can attend and watch, you know, except for opening the meeting and approving the
Right.
minutes. Everything else pretty much is done in executive session.
Mhm.
So I don't know, it's, you know, for this particular board, all the other boards, yes. But for this particular board, I don't know if it's as important.
We used to have people come to the meetings at the regatta, and it would literally, everyone files in, we
Mhm.
open the meeting, we go to executive session, and 2 hours later, if the person's still in the hallway, we bring them back. So yeah,
Um,
All right, well, so we're gonna keep it at 1 PM then,
At the regatta,
at the
Or-
upshot?
for me.
If there's a problem with the room, I'll let you guys know. We also have another smaller room that you could use if nobody's going to be Zooming. So it shouldn't be an issue, but I'll just make sure that the room's free.
Wait, this is only if they don't extend the thing, right? Otherwise, we'll all do this. Okay.
Yes.
Sally, is this more time for you, or is it more time to set up the other room and?
It doesn't, well, if you're in the regatta, I don't have to do anything except wave at you as you walk by.
Okay, so we'll
I
save you 10 minutes of it, and you don't have to sit in like this. So we
No.
free up time for you. So you guys, we're saving the village money if we come in.
But I work. I'm not, you know, I'm not listening or,
She's not sending a bill for the extra thing.
there's no double
While
dipping
she's
there.
sitting
That's
here.
all
No.
right.
no.
Right.
Somebody, that could be a very important call that you're ignoring.
All right, guys, so this, other than sort of the scheduling issue, which we just sort of worked through, anything else that is worth discussing today at the open session? If not, then let's just plan on talking next week. Potentially, it may be depending on what the governor does in person. And at that point, Sally, The only thing that may happen there is it may not give enough time for anybody that has to supplement their disclosures to do that before we meet, but that's hopefully the only open business we'll have at this stage.
Wait, one last question for Sally, since she's here. Can we update that form to make it easier for people not to make mistakes on it? We don't have such long list.
I don't see why not. The
Oh,
form's not part of the code. The form is just your form, so you could update the
Okay.
form.
Oh, that
Okay.
would be lovely. Could we do
Yeah.
a form?
Between now and next year, we'll maybe at least just reorganize the way it's written, not written, but just laid out so that people don't make the same mistakes that waste, again, your time.
maybe, are we allowed to do check boxes so they could do none and they could just check none?
I don't see why
It's our
not.
form. We could probably do whatever we
Oh,
want.
right, right. It's our form.
Thank you, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Oh, no,
know.
no, no. So that was the perfect question. Answer my question. Is there anything else we want to talk about? So yes. Anything else that's we want to go over now? And if not, like I said, then we'll just adjourn and resume next week.
Okay,
All right.
All right,
bye.
thanks, everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.